firstly let me say a very big sorry that I missed coming to your class and briefing you about OSCE, and couple of times you people had approached me. I'm very sorry, but we will compensate for all that by discussing through this online video so that you will all be ready for the OSCE on, when is it? Tuesday? 17th. Okay, fine. So let us see, we have told you that we will be giving you OSCE in complete dentures and removable partial dentures, right? So in complete dentures, how are you supposed to study for the OSCE? So let us first start with diagnosis and treatment planning. So what in diagnosis and treatment planning you need to do? First you need to know what are the landmarks. So maxillary as well as mandibular landmarks as to what are the primary stress bearing areas, what are the secondary stress bearing areas, what are the relief areas. These are some things which you must know. So this may be one of the OSCE question you can expect. The second step in complete dentures will be impressions. So in impressions, we have two, primary impressions and secondary impressions. So what can be asked in this as an OSCE question? Primary impression, what are the trays which are used? Maybe you may be asked to identify the edentulous trays versus the dentulous trays. That is one option. Number two, you may be asked what are the materials which are used for primary impressions. So you can say alginate, impression compound, okay? And for secondary impressions, you may be asked to identify the trays. So what tray you prepare for a secondary impression? You make a special tray or a custom tray with acrylic. And different types of spacers we give, either a full spacer or you give a partial spacer, and you distribute the stress based on your primary stress bearing areas. Okay? So you may be asked to identify the types of trays. So we will write down here types of trays may be asked to be identified. This is one. Number two, materials used for the primary as well as the secondary impressions. What could be the ideal materials can be asked. Number three, spacer designs. As to what spacer designs are used in the special trays can be asked. Okay. One more thing which can be asked is the technique of impression making, but that you have not done in complete denture patients, so maybe you can expect that question here. So how are you going to select the tray for a patient and how are you going to make an impression can be asked in this. We will discuss that later. Okay. The next step will be jaw relations. So you have done jaw relations in theory. You have three types of jaw relations. But the most common jaw relation which can be asked in an OSCE setup is the vertical dimension at rest and vertical dimension at occlusion at rest. Okay, so this can be asked. How it can be asked? Maybe a patient will be seated and you may be asked to measure how exactly the procedure is done. But because you all did not do a case yet in the clinics, this is not a possibility, but yet maybe we may post a picture and ask you what procedure is being done, what are they doing in this technique. So something like that you can expect. But jaw relations, you should know what are the different types along with the horizontal jaw relation, that is the centric relation recording. So any of these pictures can be kept and we may ask you what is the dentist trying to do here, what is the procedure they are trying to record, what are the flaws or what is the correct thing what they are doing. Something like that you can expect in this jaw relation section. Okay. Next step is the trine, but trine usually we are not looking into, but before that there is a laboratory step wherein you do the mounting. So for the mounting, what do we need? We need articulators. So articulators is another potential OSCE station. So any articulator can be kept and maybe we will ask you to identify the parts, or as you have read in your preclinical, what is the type of articulator it is, what are the values of those articulators, what are the uses of those articulators. So articulators chapter you have to read and come. Different types of articulators, their parts, and especially the one which you are using in clinics. So you have to know what type of articulator you are using, what are the different parts of the articulator. So this can be expected as an OSCE question as well, right? So So once this is done, what is the step? Try-in, usually we may not ask you at this stage to do try-in step demonstration in OSCE, but after that, that is after the denture insertion, what can be asked? Post-insertion instructions. So post-insertion instructions is one of the important topic. In community dentistry also, you are having a checklist. It is there in your logbook. Please go through what are the instructions you're going to give to the complete denture patient. How are you going to train them to clean their dentures? How are you going to tell them what they need to do? All this checklist is available in community dentistry logbook. So similarly, we can also ask you what are the post-insertion instructions or details you're going to give to the patient as to how to maintain the denture or what problems they may encounter once the denture is given. So this is another potential OSCE station, which can be an active station wherein you can encounter the patient and you may have to explain to the patient how they need to maintain their dentures and what are the post-insertion problems they may encounter. So now let us look into the removable partial denture. So in RPD or CPD, as I always told you, what can be asked? Number one will be the classification. So Kennedy's classification, you should be thorough along with the applicates modifications, because a cast may be kept and we may give you a treatment plan and we may ask you this particular teeth are going to go for extraction, and we will give you the scenario and ask you what classification it is according to Kennedy's with application of your applicates rules. So this you have to be thorough. A cast can be kept and a classification may be asked. Number two, as I told you, impression. So for a dentulous patient or a partially dentulous patient, we may ask you to do a impression. Not the entire procedure, maybe the selection of the tray itself or how to mix the alginate. Something like that in impression procedure will be asked. It need not be a patient as such. We may also keep a simulated model there on which you may have to demonstrate the procedure of impression making, or maybe the chair positioning. How are you going to stand for a maxillary impression? How are you going to stand for a mandibular impression? This you have undergone training in your clinical postings. So this you can expect a question to demonstrate how you are going to make the impressions, how you are going to select the tray, how you are going to stand while making the impressions. So this is one potential question. Number three, we have learned in theory class about components. So definitely a cast partial denture framework may be kept and the different components may be asked to be identified. Like they may ask what is the major connector or the minor connector or the indirect retainer or a direct retainer. Whatever components have been covered in class for you till now may be asked by asking you to look at the model and identify. Maybe you will also have to give an indication or a contraindication or an advantage or a disadvantage of that. So please read all the components and you should be able to identify them in the OSCE station. So I think I have compensated for all the missed classes where we had to come and brief you, and these are the potential OSCE stations. I did not set the paper. I do not know what is the actual paper existing there, but definitely I can tell you that the OSCE stations will be among these what I have discussed right now, and all the very best. I hope you all will really make us proud and do your exam well.